She was 8 years old when they came for her mother. She watched from a window. She did not understand what was happening. 3 years later, they came for her too. Her name was recorded. Her confession was taken. She was 11 years old. In Nuremberg, in the years between 1590 and 1630, no one was safe. Not the poor, not the powerful, not even the children. This is not a story about superstition. This is a story about what happens when fear becomes policy.
Subscribe.
Nuremberg was not a forgotten village at the edge of the world. It was one of the most important cities in the Holy Roman Empire, a place of commerce, of art, of law. Albrecht Dürer had walked these streets. The city's craftsmen were known across Europe. Its council was educated, disciplined, respected. This matters, because what happened here did not happen in ignorance. It happened in a city that knew better and chose otherwise. The late 16th century brought pressure from every direction. Harvests failed, winters hardened, disease moved through the population like a slow hand. People needed explanations, and explanations in that era had a shape, a witch's shape. The first accusations were quiet. A woman here, a beggar there. The kind of person a community finds easy to discard, easy to blame, easy to burn. But Nuremberg's fire did not stay small. It learned to grow. Here is what most people do not understand about witch trials. They were not chaos, they were procedure. They were forms to fill out, officials to notify, confessions to record in careful handwriting that still exists in archives today. The machinery of prosecution was thorough, patient, and in its own horrifying way, organized. In Nuremberg, the process worked like this. An accusation was made, the accused was arrested. Torture was applied, methodically, with pauses, with witnesses present, until a confession was obtained. And embedded in every confession was the same demand. Name others. Who taught you? Who was there? Who stood beside you? The accused, in agony, in terror, in the simple human need for it to stop, gave names. Those names were arrested. Those people were tortured. Those people gave more names. The machine fed itself. And here is the detail that should make you stop. The names people gave were not strangers. They were neighbors, friends, family members, people they loved, people they were trying to protect by naming someone else first. But the machine did not care. For a time, there was a logic to who was accused. The poor, the elderly, the woman who argued too loudly, or the man who owed too much. People on the margins, people whose disappearance caused the least disruption. Nuremberg broke that logic. By the early 17th century, the accusations had climbed. A respected midwife, a city councilman's wife, a school teacher. A young girl from a family of merchants who had done nothing except exist in a city that needed someone to blame. One case stopped even the prosecutors. A man named Paulus Geiger, a respected citizen known to the council, was accused by 3 separate confessions, independent confessions, from people who had never spoken to each other. He was arrested, he confessed, he named his own wife. At some point in those years, the people running the machine began to understand what they had created. The accusations were no longer selecting the guilty, they were selecting anyone. The machine had no preference, it simply ran, and no one knew how to turn it off. Everyone knows Salem. Between 1692 and 1693, 19 people were executed in Massachusetts. One community, a few months, 19 dead. The world never forgot it. Between 1590 and 1630, Nuremberg and its surrounding territories executed somewhere between 300 and 500 people for witchcraft. Over decades, in one of the most sophisticated cities in Europe. And the world almost forgot. Why do we teach Salem in every classroom and Nuremberg almost never? Perhaps because Salem had an ending that felt like justice. The hysteria collapsed. Those responsible expressed public shame. There was remorse. Nuremberg had no remorse. It had only silence. The names we do have tell a story that numbers cannot. Children as young as 8 were questioned. Some were executed, not as bystanders, as accused. The youngest confirmed execution in the broader Franconian region during this period was a child of 10 years old, convicted and burned. The Council of Nuremberg, educated men of law, men who had built one of the most sophisticated civic systems in Europe, signed the orders. They signed them with the same pen they used for trade agreements, for building permits, for letters to their families. They went home for dinner afterwards. The trials ended, not because someone stopped them out of justice or conscience. They ended because they ran out of momentum, because the accusations had climbed so high, had touched so many powerful families, so many people the council could not afford to lose, that continuing became impossible. Not wrong, just impossible. The city did not reckon with what it had done. There were no trials for the prosecutors, no monuments for the victims. The records were filed away, the city moved on. Some of the children who survived, who had watched parents burn, who had been questioned themselves and released, grew up in the same streets where it happened, bought bread from the same markets, walked past the same buildings. They never spoke of it publicly. What do you do with a city that devoured itself and then continued? What do you do with institutions that functioned perfectly, that followed every rule, filed every document, obtained every signature, and still destroyed hundreds of innocent lives? Nuremberg was not a failure of civilization. It was a civilization operating exactly as designed. And that is the most terrifying thing this city ever produced. Not the fire, the paperwork.
and subscribe.